Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Only Land Fan Show. My name is Kendall Lejeune, and our guest today is Justin Bogard. Justin's company, American Note, educates both new and seasoned investors alike in cutting-edge methods for producing cash flow from properties without actually having to own them. Besides being the co-founder and director of operations at American, Justin is the host of the Be the Bank podcast that shares insights and practical knowledge of owning a real estate note. He was also a contributing author to the Amazon #1 bestseller, Real Estate Without Renters. In 2018, he started a real estate note broadcast that now has thousands of followers and is streamed live every month on the American Note Buyers YouTube channel. Justin is a sought-after speaker and presenter at local, regional, and national real estate events and conferences. He has won case study competitions for performing loans and was also Note Investor of the Year in 2020. He is continually looking for ways to increase his scope of influence, all with the hope of helping as many people as he can create stable financial futures for themselves through the power of savvy real estate investing. Justin, thanks so much for joining us. How are you today?
Thank you for having me. I'm doing awesome. I'm here in Fishers,
Awesome.
Indiana. The weather is good. We got the Indianapolis 500 coming up here in a couple of days, so things are exciting here.
Very good. Well, we're so excited to have you. You specialize in an area that we have so many people in the land space very interested about, really excited to talk about notes. So let's just jump right in. Can you tell us a little bit about how did you get into real estate? How did you get into note work?
I was watching a lot of HGTV and I was like, hey, look, somebody is buying a house. They're fixing it up and they're making money and they do it all in 30 minutes. It seems like a pretty easy way to make money. And I always been kind of handy. And so I just learned about some local people that were putting together a seminar. I went there and they kind of upgraded me to another class, which upgraded me to another class, which upgraded me to another class. And they got my money. And but I liked it. I got into flipping houses and doing wholesale deals and became a landlord. And I really didn't like being the landlord part, but I didn't mind flipping the houses and stuff. I really just did a terrible job of managing the project and dealing with the contractors and just, not having a good system in place and having a lot of building a good team. So I found out quickly that the margins were just starting to get a little bit slim and it just didn't work out for me. And then so my future mentor had just come into town and was teaching about buying note and mortgages. And I was like, why would you do that? That doesn't make sense. And so then he was teaching about it. And then my big light bulb came off in my head. And I was like, this is for me. So I can buy these assets virtually. I can be anywhere. I'm not tied to the real estate. I don't physically have to be there. And so that's how I learned to invest in notes. And I've been doing it kind of ever since, performing and non-performing mortgages. And, every now and then I do get some land deals that we buy as well.
Very cool. So you actually were a landlord and then turned note investor. Now, you mentioned that when you first started, you had a mentor. What courses or mentors did you first start out with?
So like in traditional real estate, as I call it, or the note investing part?
Both.
So for the traditional real estate where I got into this stuff, I took Tarek and Christina's class. I forget what the name of it was. This was back in 2015, 2016 timeframe. I took that class and I learned how to be a flipper and a wholesaler and a landlord. Eventually, a guy named Eddie Speed came to town. It was close to where you live here in Texas. He's out of Dallas, and he had his one of his people there teaching about note investing, and they have a program called Note School, and that's kind of where I cut my teeth in the note investing world. And he is my mentor, along with a couple other people, a part of that program as well.
That's fantastic. And so, can you talk to us a little bit about what your first land deal looked like?
So my first land deal was a sucker deal where I was the sucker because I had not been investing in anything very long. And so I got some, what I like to say, which is, to me, it's funny. I got some swampland in Florida. So I went to, it's near Fort Myers, Lehigh Acres. I bought a parcel in there, and I just did it with a small balance IRA, and I bought it. It's the first one that I bought in my IRA. First anything I really did with my IRA for real estate investing. And I bought it, and I didn't really know what I was going to do with it. And I was like, okay, I just let it sit here, right? And they were saying, yeah, you can let it sit there. You can wait a couple of years. Maybe you can double your money, whatever, whatever. So I kind of bought it, and really nothing was happening in the area. And so I just sat there, and I decided, okay, let's put a sign in the ground and say, hey, for sale by owner, or cash offers accepted. And I would get a lot of people that would be pinging me and give me like really low ball offers. I think I bought this thing for maybe like $6,000 or something. And then I was getting like these $500,000 offers from local people there in Florida. And I was like, okay, well, they obviously know something, like what's going on here. And then another year went by, and I kind of forgot about it. And then I kind of put my real estate note investing hat on. I said, Justin, what the heck are you doing? You teach about seller financing all the time, but you're not even trying to do it yourself with this piece of land, because it's such a small account that I never even thought about it after I had this. So I ended up just doing a Facebook marketplace post to a local area, and I said, hey, for sale by owner, deserving buyer, larger down payment, I'll carry the terms back. Here's your monthly payment. In 4 years, you pay me off. So I found somebody, and they gave me $1,000 down. So I'm already, only 5,000 into this deal. And then I have a note for $6,000. So I got a little bit of spread there. And then I kept it for about 5 or 6 payments. I ended up selling it to a friend of mine that was looking to make some passive income in their retirement account. And so I ended up making $1,000 on it when I was actually supposed to probably lose about $2,000 on it, selling it for cash. So that's kind of my land story. Went from could have been really bad to I turned out okay.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So, for those who might not be familiar who are listening, can you explain the concept of exactly what is a note and how does it work in detail?
Right. So a note is just a promise to pay. You can put a note on anything. You can put it on, your phone if you want. You can put it on anything that has value, and somebody wants to sell it to you. You can sell it on a contract. That's literally where the word land contract comes from. You guys have probably all heard that word. So that is just where the debt person that has the debt, me, I need to pay somebody, you, the lender, and then I'm paying you in an installment sale. And every time I make a payment, I gain equity. And so eventually I pay you the entirety of what I owe you, and then you transfer the deed over to me. And that's kind of how a land contract works. Right. So in the land business, the word land contract is very commonly used. In the single family and multifamily and the traditional real property, real estate world, when you have property on the land, we call that a note and mortgage or a note and deed of trust. You can still use those instruments on land. It's just most people kind of do a land contract with land and note and deed of trust and note and mortgage, depending on what state you're in. In your state in Texas, it's note and deed of trust. You probably hear that often. In my state, I'm a mortgage state, so we call it note and mortgage. So the mortgage or the deed of trust is the security that says, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Lender, this paper we're going to record with the county, and it says that if Justin doesn't pay Kendall what he is owed, the default for me is Kendall gets to take my property via foreclosure. And so that's why you have 2 papers. You have a note, and you have deed of trust for you or mortgage for me.
Excellent. And so if someone is, used to the flip model where they, buy cheap and sell high, for example, or buy discounted and sell high, or sell at retail, can you talk a little bit about how a note would differ from that strategy and what it looks like on the investment side from a return perspective?
Yes, that's a great question. And it's hard to answer because you're not talking apples to apples. You're talking apples and oranges. When you flip a
Right.
house, you expect to get cash immediately, and you expect to do that in less than 12 years. So that's a short-term gain, which is why they have short-term taxes, right? And they have long-term gains and long-term taxes. So if you want cash flow, then, having a note or having a rental is kind of how you make cash flow. And then if you want quick money, it's like wholesaling and it's like flipping a house. That's how you make quick money and transactional money. Cash flow is more passive, and flipping and the transactional money is more active. So when you look at a flip, it really depends. I would say, I don't know if this is true right now because I'm not flipping right now, but it used to be we could make about $15,000 of profit for every $100,000 the house was sold at. So if you imagine $200,000 sale price, you're hopefully making $30,000, and that's the range that you kind of needed to be in, minus taxes and real estate fees and stuff. It really wasn't 30; it was more like 18 or 19. So with a note, you don't make that instant money like that. You make it kind of over time, and you build cash flow. So it's a little bit different. We have different ways to get into real estate with notes. We can actually buy properties, what we say, on terms, meaning we have, Kendall, you have a piece of land or a piece of property and you want to sell it to me. And then you say, hey, Justin, here you go. Here's the offer for it. It's $50,000. I'm like, okay, great. Look, I can't give you 50 because I don't have 50. I can't go to the bank because of this, that, and the other, but I can give you $10,000 down, Kendall. But would you carry the $40,000 back as a note? And then I owe you, and I'll just pay you like the bank over time. You say, okay, yeah, that works. I'll take $400 payments every month for the next, whatever, 15 years or so. And then boom, I paid you off and you put an interest rate on it. And that's kind of how it works. So it's tough to answer the question, how they are different. It all depends on the investor, if they want long-term cash flow or they want a short-term transactional gain.
Yes, that makes total sense. I think one of the things that a lot of our guests have on our show before is that creative finance is thing that is starting to really kind of infiltrate the land space, and it opens up a whole world of opportunities and possibilities. And so, are there any instances that you can recall, or maybe case studies that maybe not exactly land, but it could relate to the land space, in which working a note deal, having a note investment has really worked to structure the deal or hold the deal together or something?
It comes down to the person buying the property. They either got cash in hand, they can go to Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Chase, and they can get a mortgage just like that. That's how most of the transactions are done. The ones that slip out of that category are the little outliers. And those, let's say they're about maybe 4 or 5 out of 20 that come out that way. So every deal that you do doesn't fit a terms deal, as we say. If you're trying to sell a piece of land, they don't all work that way, but some of them can work that way. And when they do, they can be quite lucrative. So there's different strategies to it. We're a firm believer of getting large down payments, because we see a lot of loans and we own a lot of loans. And we know that when borrowers don't put down sizable down payments, meaning 15, 20, 30% down payments on the purchase price, it's going to have a higher probability of defaulting on you. And as a note owner and someone that has a portfolio, you really don't want to see a lot of your loans default. Sometimes things happen, they're out of your control, life happens, but you don't want to see a big default rate in your portfolio. So that's what we caution people and say, hey, look, if someone only has a nickel to their name, they're not going to be a good borrower to you, right? You wouldn't have them rent your house probably either. So.
Right. Now, you just mentioned that word default. I know for a lot of people who have never done a deal that has notes as a component, that word can be very scary. Can you talk a little bit about what the default process might look like and how that impacts the investor?
That's a great question. And it is the number one looming question, the big D, as they call it. And it could be slighted a different way, but we're talking about default. Okay, let's clarify that. The D is default. So the default happens when the borrower doesn't meet the expectation of the note. The note spells out the exact terms that they want. I need to be paid on the first. You got a 15-day grace period, whatever the terms say. Then after so many days, you're considered default. You don't pay your taxes, you're default. You don't pay your insurance on your property, you're in default. Like all these things spell out default. Once you're in default, then you can start proceeding legal action because they signed this contract with you, this document. So what that looks like is you have a couple of options as a lender. You can reach back out the borrower and say, hey, look, what's going on? What can you do? Did you know there's a government assisted program in your state that can help you with your mortgage if you're having a hard time? Did you lose a job? Did you lose a spouse, to where you lost half your income that can pay on the mortgage? Like all these things, the government can help them out, and they can make us, the lender, they can make us whole by paying all the back taxes, paying back some of the insurance they owe me, paying the 4 or 5 months they got behind on because they lost their loved one or whatever. So those things can happen. You can ask for a deed in lieu. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that term, but it's basically you get a deed back in lieu of foreclosure. So he's saying, instead of going for foreclosure on you, just send the deed back to me. Just gift the property back over to me. And I don't go through foreclosure. I get it back today. Then I can put back on my real estate hat, that I can go resell it again. I can flip it to whoever, a wholesaler, flipper. I can sell it on terms again. The last thing that we do is the foreclosure. So that's when there's no options. The borrower is either they're being difficult with you, or they just have no other options, or you can't find them. Like sometimes they just skip town. They go bye-bye. I don't know. They get scared, right? So that is when you go through the judicial process. In your state, however, Kendall, you have a bigger advantage than my state, because your state is a deed of trust. So they have what's called a power of sale clause, which means a trustee is holding that deed and they sell the property. They don't have to go through the court system. In my state, I have to go through the court system. So there are strategies with note investors where they only invest in states that have a smaller or a shorter time period of foreclosure, because they know the big D when it comes up, right? That they don't want to be in a state that takes 2 years to close, like in New York or California. Like they don't want to be in those states, because they know worst case scenario, man, my money's going to be tied up for years. I don't want to do that, unless the deal is just going to be a rainmaker for you. You got 100,000 into it and you get 800 back. I think I could wait a couple of years to make my money on that. So hopefully that cleared things up with default. It doesn't have to be scary. It's just a process, and you just got to wait.
Just wait it out. Interesting. And so, if someone's listening to this and they say, well, I've heard about investing in notes. I've heard of that term, investing in notes, but I don't want to, go find a property, to have a property and try to sell it and create a note that way. What's the most passive way that someone can actually invest in notes?
Most passive way is to invest in notes without investing in notes, which means it's like a fund. So we happen to manage a fund as well. So we have a private debt fund. And so that is a way that people could be, the bank still. You're still receiving passive income. You don't have to have any knowledge of what to do because you're not in operations. That's a really passive way. Owning a note can be passive, but you also have to be a little bit active as well, because you have to engage in the process a little bit, at least set it up to where you can set it and forget it. And it's just money coming like in your retirement account or, in your LLC. And that's kind of, I don't know if that answers your question, but.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that was right on. And so let's say that someone is interested in investing in one of these types of funds. They want to invest in notes, but they want to be hands off. How do they get started? Where do they go for that kind of thing?
It's really, they have to educate themselves first. And there's no encyclopedia that says, hey, stop here at A and B funds at my website and then go to step 2, then step 3. There's no roadmap for them. It's just you have to kind of learn this stuff by doing your own research and going to places that are reputable and talking to people in your local community that are like me, like a note investor. Like, hey, who do you know? Where do you get education from? How can I learn more about this? I can tell you I have a ton of free content online, but if so do 1,000 other people, right, about note investing. So you just have to familiarize yourself with the process and talk to people that actually do the business, so you can get comfortable and say, are you a player, or are you an investor, a donator? Are you donating to someone that can do all the work for you, or do you want to be actively involved and do it yourself? And if both answers are fine. You just have to discover who are you.
Right. Who are you, and then lean into that, right?
Yeah. Just like in land, when you guys buy land, I'm sure you guys raise money as well, and you're actively doing it, or you're actively participating as the lender in the situation where someone's doing all the work and you're benefiting from the passivity of that.
Absolutely. That's fantastic. Now, how have you seen the landscape of real estate note investing change since you started in the industry?
So when I started, non-performing loans were really popular, and they were everywhere. You could buy non-performing loans. I'm not kidding you. What we call 20 cents on the dollar, meaning the property value is 100,000 and you can buy this note for 20,000. It was that ridiculous. Now there's nothing like that today. This was because of the rainfall of the real estate debacle, as I call it, in 08, 09. So all these foreclosures just came rushing to the courthouses. Okay. And there was about, on average, honestly, at the peak of it for about a year, there was about 250,000 foreclosures every month. Can you imagine that? 250,000 across the country of foreclosures every month. There's leftover inventory. Nobody could buy it all. Not even Blackstone, not even the big Wall Street firms. They couldn't buy it all. It was so much of it. That's how bad it was.
Crazy.
So that lingered into 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. Then we started to see things. People had already bought them all. And so a lot of the funds had to recycle through all those non-performing notes and those reperforming notes that they created from non-performing notes. And so the inventory after I started to dwindle as far as finding really sweet deals, as I call them. And so nowadays it's challenging to find deals because you kind of got to know somebody in the business to find deals and to create your own deals. So what's different today and back then is probably that the inventory isn't as plentiful as it was. And a lot of people go for the low hanging fruit, as you know, in any business. They want the path of least resistance. But we're the opposite of that. We go against the grain and we actually harvest our own inventory. And we don't have a problem finding inventory, but of course we take a more challenging road to get to it. So our road is a squiggly line and over a mountain and through the woods, right? And someone else might just take, just a straight shot over to the low hanging fruit. That's kind of what it is today. So we're seeing non-performing loans get bogged up in the pipeline a little bit. So they're slowly getting released, and we might see a bigger release coming up soon, but it's not going to be anything like it was, 10 years ago.
Right. Now you mentioned what we might see coming up soon. Can you go a little bit more into detail? What do you think the future looks like in the space?
Well, if you're in an apartment syndication, I would get out now. The writing is on the wall with apartment syndications. I would not be in an apartment syndication right now. A lot of those syndicators are bailing out because they're overpromising what their returns are to their investors, and they're not able to get anywhere close to what they're promising. And some of them are even starting debt funds like what we have. So number one, the commercial space is just getting hit hard, and it's going to get hit even worse. And we feel like the opportunity is going to be great for a lot of people to get into non-performing commercial loans about a year from now, next year around this time. So that's what we see coming in the pipeline. Now, residential non-performing, we're going to see some more inventory, but it's going to be more lines of the $150,000 to $300,000 home price range, which isn't affordable to a lot of one-off note buyers, unless you have like a fund or a good size money behind you. So for land's always good, right? There's no bad economic time for land. It's just, where are you buying it and what are you doing with it? So the guys that do a lot of terms and note financing on land, they'll typically buy bigger parcels and then chop them up and sell them one at a time, which Texas is a huge state for that.
Yes. Now, knowing what you know about land, knowing what you know about notes, what do you think is the largest opportunity for a land investor to sort of harness that power of notes as a tool, as an investing tool, to be able to grow the business?
So what I know from other land businesses and the land guys is that you're able to buy these things pretty cheap sometimes. And I'll even throw out $500 to $1,000. Sometimes you can buy these things for just ridiculous prices. If you can resell them with larger down payments and get all of your money back, plus put some more in your pocket, and then have that passive income coming in from the rest of the note, that is a very lucrative business model right there. So let's say you pay $1,000 for the piece of land. You resell it for, I don't know, $8,000, and you get, $1,200, $1,500 down, and then you finance the other $6,000. I mean, that's a look. If you can do that 25 times in a year, all that passive income coming in, you don't have to work nearly as hard in year 3. You can start retiring early.
Absolutely.
That is a lucrative
Right,
way
right.
for land folks to get involved with that.
That's fantastic. Now, let me ask you, what do you think no one is, or not enough people are talking about in the note investing space that we should be talking about?
I think they need to be talking more about creating a very secure note and a very good situation for the borrower. As we say, just in business in general, a loyal customer is a profitable customer. So it doesn't translate that much differently to a borrower. If you make sure your borrower is set up for success, they're going to continue to pay you like clockwork throughout the entirety of that loan until they decide to sell the land or the property or refinance out of it. Now, how do you do that? Well, you've got to underwrite them. You've got to look at their income. You got to look at their expenses and their debt. You can actually send them to a third party underwriter to have them go through that and be like, yep, they can afford it with their income. Because land, this isn't their primary residence, right? this is either an investment property for them or something they want to do for fun. That's kind of their place to go shooting guns or ride four-wheelers or whatever it is they do on the land, right? Go camping on it. So we know that they have a primary residence, but do they have enough money left over to pay for this, right? So you want to make sure they can afford it.
Yeah, that is fantastic. That's really, really good insight. Now, what has been one of the biggest surprises for you on your note investing journey so far?
It's been the I don't mean this as a disrespect. I mean this as the unsophisticated novice person that's trying to be a note investor that doesn't have the proper knowledge or the mentorship on what the do's and don'ts are. I've seen a lot of loans created that are really bad for a lender, meaning like zero down, 0% interest, deferring payments, writing them on land contracts when they really should be done like on a note and mortgage, not having a title policy, not doing a proper closing with it, drafting it off of LegalZoom instead of going to an attorney. I see a lot of that stuff out there, and it just breaks my heart. It's because I can't buy it from them at the price that they want me to buy it from them because I have to fix a lot of that stuff, which costs me money. So that is the stuff that I see that I wish that people had just had more education on, saying, hey, if you make some tweaks here, if you just spend a little bit more money up front, you're going to have a really secure note that you can either keep for yourself long term or you can sell it to somebody like me or another note business.
That's a really good piece of advice. So from a note buyer's perspective, let's say that we have people here that are listening that want to, or they have created notes, or they want to create notes on a piece of land, and you know that they want to turn around and sell that note. What do you look for as a note buyer in terms of this is a deal that I would want to invest in, or this is a note that I would.
So the traditional note guys don't do a lot of land, don't buy a lot of land themselves. They may create notes on land or buy notes on land, but they don't. That's not our forte. Our forte is real property, and so we know comps pretty well. So we know the risk going into it. If I had to take the property back, how much can I get out of it tomorrow and not have to futz with it? With land, we don't know that as well as you guys do, right? So we have to mitigate our risk by lowering our price point to buy land deals. So it it has to do with a lot of different factors. So you want to make sure you have, a good interest rate. You want to have, like we talked about before, a large down payment. You want to make sure the borrower's underwritten so we understand, can they afford it? You want to make sure that, you got a title policy so we know that there's no true liens and encumbrances on that property, and getting a loan policy so that we know the loan's in the first position. We want to make sure the taxes are being paid. We don't have to worry about insurance on raw land, right? Because there's nothing to insure, right? That's one thing. So that in itself is raising the value of that paper to where I can pay more money for it. Now, what is that price? There's a lot of factors that would depend on it. So let's just say the best case scenario is really getting like a 25% down payment. So let's say if you sell something for 10 grand, you want to get $2,500 down payment. And then what do we have left? We got $7,500 left as a note. And then on that note, we might pay like, $5,000 for it or something if it was done right at the closing table. Now, why would we take so much money off the top of the note? Well, we don't have proof of concept from the borrower. If they haven't made any payments, we don't have any guarantee they're going to make payments because we have no story to read to go off of to say, yeah, they have a high propensity to repay or they don't. So the longer you hold a note, the more valuable it actually is for you and for me to buy as the buyer, the note buyer. But we'll still buy the paper, and we'll definitely help you set up the paper if you choose to, so that like, hey, look, I've done the best that I can to set this up for success for me.
Excellent. So, your bio mentioned American Note Buyers, your company.
Yep.
And so can you talk to us a little bit about how you help people, sort of transitioning from being a landlord to, essentially being the bank through note investing? How does your company do that?
So we just have a lot of educational material. We have a YouTube channel that has a ton of videos. We do a podcast that comes out every other week called Be the Bank. We have a monthly broadcast that's more educational. That's like a live YouTube/Facebook stream that we go over like case studies and talking about that stuff. So people that come to us, they fit in a couple different buckets. So they're either in a bucket to where they want to do this full time, and then we kind of tell them what we know and share our experiences and be like, okay, if you need an educator, like a class, you need to go to Note School or a place like that to where they're going to be, giving you handouts and all that information. Bucket number 2 is somebody that wants to buy the note and be active today, but they also need their hand held. Well, they can do that too. And we can kind of buy the note and sell a partial to them to where we're kind of in the deal with them. But we're all making money and they don't have to do as much work because we're vested in this. So we'll do some of the operational work for them. And then bucket number 3 is really where they're super passive and they just become an investor. Like they understand it and they're comfortable with notes and what we do, but they just don't want to have to deal with all the operations. And that's my job. So I'm the director of operations for our company. And so I manage the portfolio and do all the pricing and selling the assets too.
Excellent. So there's lots of different options out there depending on where their strengths are or what they're looking for.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Now, if you could go back to, when you were first starting in investing in notes, what advice would you have for yourself when you were first starting?
I probably would go back and say you really need to not disregard these flips so quickly. You need to still try to maybe do some of those, but turn them into owner financing notes, meaning find some of these properties, do a light rehab on it, or maybe it's just cosmetic only, and then sell them with seller financing. And I wish I would have started doing that a lot more several years ago, because I think I would have have an even nicer portfolio right now to go off of.
That's great. And for someone who may not be familiar with what you just mentioned in terms of how you buy and how you sell and create notes on both sides, can you walk us through a little bit more of that?
Yeah,
Like
that
what would
is
it
it's a more advanced transaction, and so you can do it all simultaneously at one closing if you got all the pieces in place to play chess there, or you just do it one at a time. Where, like we talked about earlier in our hypothetical. So Kendall, you have a house or let's just say a piece of land you want to sell me, and so you say, okay, Justin, the price is $9,000 cash. I'm like, okay, well, I don't have cash. What can you do? Well, what do you have, Justin? I'll be like, well, I got $2,000. Can you clear back financing for me? He's like, yeah, Justin, I'll sell it to you for 10,000 now. Oh, okay. Why is that? Well, because if you need premium financing, it's a premium service, right? So then you sell it to me for 10,000. I give you $2,000, and then you carry back a note for $8,000. And so now I'm paying you. At the same time, I'm marketing this property to somebody else. I'm saying, hey, look, I got this property here. I can sell it to you for $15,000. So then I go and get like $3,000 or $4,000 from them. And then I have that, either I can keep it or I can pay you down on the debt that I owe you. And then I'm wrapping another note around it. So if you imagine a ball and then a bigger sphere around that ball, and that's how the wrap mortgage works. And that's a situation where you would leverage and get free cash flow. It's basically like having a rental and then getting a mortgage on it. So your tenant is paying you a payment, which pays down your mortgage, but you keep the leftover cash flow, that free cash flow. The same thing with wrapping a note. So you're giving a note around a note.
Yeah, that's a fantastic way of putting it. I've heard mortgages explained in a few different ways, and that's a really crystal clear way. That's awesome.
We have some visual aids that we use when we do case studies like that and show people like how it's better when you see it on a PowerPoint. Like, oh, okay, I get it. I'm paying Kindle, what I owe him on the $8,000 mortgage, but I'm also getting I also have another 11,000 mortgage behind it that someone else is paying me. So I can afford to pay Kindle, but I also keep a little bit of money for myself.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And then you have no money in the deal.
Best kind of way to be in a deal.
That's everybody wants that, right? They want to have no accountability and no money in the deal and just make passive income. That's the dream. It doesn't happen very often at all. I'll just be honest with you, but it is the dream.
That is so funny. Very cool. Very cool. So shifting gears a little bit, are you using AI at all in your business now?
We're starting to. So some of our vendors use AI heavily, basically look at documents and highlight the things that we need to know or things that we need to change. And then other AI is what you guys probably do as well for marketing. AI is pretty good for marketing. So we use it for descriptions, the show notes for our podcast, just perfunctory tasks, as we call them, is helping us with that. So we do have other large hedge funds that we are close to say they tell us that they are basically using AI to go over their data tapes. So if they have 1,500 loans on Excel spreadsheet, we'll use AI to go through it. And they know their metrics on what they want. They know their risk tolerances, and it does boom, 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 boom in an instant. And they know if they want to buy that tape or not. So that is a game changer for the big guys.
Yeah, it's very cool. Do you foresee possible uses for AI in your business in the future?
Yeah, so like I said, we're using it a little bit right now with marketing. We're trying to be careful because I'm from the computer programming world, so I understand where it's coming from and kind of how it works. But I'm also hesitant to just press the start button and just see what happens, because I want to test the theory and see how it works first. Model it out. So we're going to be a little bit careful as far as when it comes to data and using AI. But as far as marketing and sales and stuff, we think it's pretty solid right now. Just glossing over after it spits out some a document or spits out a paragraph of what you want to say.
Right. Yeah, it's very cool. It's very exciting to see what's going to be coming down the pike in that industry for sure.
Yeah.
So what do you consider to be your superpower?
Being able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, right?
That's incredible.
It's funny you mentioned that, because I was on a panel about a year ago, and it was about your superpowers. And what I had determined when I was thinking about it is that I am a really good recruiter. So it doesn't really have anything to do with real estate, but I'm a good recruiter, meaning I can see some of the qualities in somebody that can add an immense value to our business and what we do. And so that's what I tether myself to those people. So like my business partner, Richard, he is a guy that has done a ton of hard money loans and a ton of like billions of dollars in commercial lending. And so he was a huge value add to the company. So that's why we formed the company together, American Note Buyer. So we were individually had our own companies, and then we decided to put those aside and start this business and manage a real estate fund as well. So that was a huge add. We found a fractional CFO that we use, and we got other people in like the IT field that help us develop software, proprietary software for what we do. It's just, I feel like I'm a really good recruit for that stuff. I do have a keen eye for a deal in specifically the note space. I'm not going to say I can do any real estate deal, but in the note space, I have really good insight and gut instincts on if a deal is going to be what we want or not. And I have a pretty good track record of having that pan out the way that we should. So I think that would be my superpower, is probably recruiting, and then looking at a note deal pretty quickly knowing if it's going to work out for the price that we want to buy it for.
That's fantastic. Are there any specific entrepreneurs or influencers in the business space, business owners that you like to follow?
Gary V,
Mhm. Yeah.
he's probably the the guy that I would look to if you want to be a leader instead of a boss. I would idolize and mimic exactly what he does and how he talks to his employees and how he treats people. That's a guy that separates himself from other people. He's a true leader and a great guy. Um, I would say, and from my mentor standpoint, in my space, Eddie Speed is the guy at the top of the tower, and that is a guy in the note space that he's done it all, and he's done it all for 40 years, and he's very successful at what he does, and he's also holds you accountable too. So he isn't a somebody that'll pat me on the head and say, "Okay, nice job, but you'll do better next time." He'll tell me when I've done something wrong, and which I respect a lot, and is very honest about it. So, in your space, whoever's listening to this, I would say find somebody that's going to hold you accountable and is going to make sure that you're doing what you're supposed to do, because we all need it, really.
Absolutely. No, that's fantastic. I'm a big Gary Vee fan too. I
Yeah.
really enjoy his for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, what is your biggest passion or goal you'd like to achieve at this point in your life?
I just want to pay the knowledge forward. I've been very blessed and very fortunate in all the things I've done in real estate, what I call traditional real estate and note investing, that a lot of people have given me some great advice. And I've taken that and I've done what they've said, and I haven't made too many mistakes. I feel like I still make mistakes, but I don't think I make nearly as many as I would if I didn't listen to them. So
Right, right. Now, you mentioned that that you guys do operate a fund for note investing. How do you go about raising money for the fund?
it's whoever's around you. It's that is the evergreen question, is how to raise private money. It's talked about everywhere I go. There's no direct easy answer. It's a grind. It's rhythmic. It's a sales thing. It's cyclical. It could take 2 years to get money from somebody. It could take 2 minutes. It's you never know what it's like. So the best thing to do is just to be honest, to be yourself, and never overpromise and underdeliver.
Very good, very good. Now, we've all heard that money is everywhere. It can be anywhere at all times, so I'll just always be on the lookout for that, always be open to that. So let's say that you were at, I don't know, a dinner or something, and it's not really real estate related. Are you also
Yeah.
looking to raise funds just from the people
I'm,
around
I'm
you?
talking
All
to the
right. So,
cashier
uh,
where I go to buy food. I'm talking to whoever I f- I feel like I'm sitting next to somebody on an airplane and giving them my business card or my poker chip that has my info on it. Talk wearing my logos. Anywhere that I go, I'm flashing and branding, I guess, my what we do, to where I'm going to find somebody eventually that's going to be interested enough to what I do to get them down the rabbit hole of maybe a drip campaign on an email or text campaign. This, you have to do it constantly. It isn't like you turn the faucet on and turn the faucet off when you want. It doesn't work that way at all.
right, right. So let's say you're in a situation where you're at the airport and someone strikes up a conversation and asks you, so what do you do? How do you answer that
Well, I
question?
say I'm in real estate investing, and instead of flipping the house or investing in the property, I actually buy the mortgage on the property for the passive income, and they just kind of, and I say just enough for them to kind of be like, you know, but wait, and then I kind of dive into, well, I'm the bank. Why do you think there's the biggest buildings in your downtown city are bank owned, right? There's a bank on every street corner. They have it figured out. Um, this is what I decided to do. I'm passive. I don't have to fix the win. I just go on to all the excuses of that I've had on owning real estate and real property, and be like, I don't have to do any of the work. I don't swing a hammer. I got my calculator on my phone, and that's all I need.
I love it. I love that. I love that. Just enough to pique their interest.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Most people want to do it themselves, but after they go through the training and after they get the education, those 10 people that want to do it themselves, 8 of them fall out and be like, I just want to do a deal with you or do a deal with somebody else, meaning they want to partner with us or invest in the fund. That's typically what they want because they don't have time to do this. This is a full-time job. This is passive income, but it's a full-time job for me, right? Because I'm managing the portfolio. Once you have probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 loans, it isn't that passive. It starts to become a little bit more active. And once you get a portfolio of 15 to 20 loans, you kind of got to be a little more active in it. And then once you
Right.
get a 50 loan portfolio, you're probably going to have somebody help you manage it.
Right. Now, can you talk a little bit about what are some of those activities that will make it a little bit more active and passive? Like if someone's not listening to this and, well, how hard could it be? Like, what are you
Yeah.
doing?
It's not rocket science, that's for sure, but it's process, it's a system, it's walking through all the steps. You do due diligence on a land deal, you'll do due diligence on a rental, you'll do due diligence when you buy a personal residence for your own house. You count up how many hours you spend doing that. It's not any different than buying a note. I still have to do due diligence. I have to send somebody out to the property to take pictures. I have to get a title report and analyze it. I may have to send a document to an attorney to make sure that it's a legal enforceable document. I got to make sure I run comps in the area. There's a ton of things that you have to do. Now, it's not like I spend hours and hours on it, but if I'm buying 4 or 5 loans at a time, that's a good chunk of my day tied up on trying to do due diligence on those assets because I don't want my money going out there and not getting a return for it. So
Absolutely.
that's
Yeah.
where it becomes active. Now, once you buy them and you get them set up with your loan servicer, well, they're kind of set it and forget it. And you just kind of check in on them from time to time. But the first couple of months, you're pretty active. But like
Yeah,
us,
that
we're
makes
buying and selling, buying and selling. So you can imagine we're constantly doing something. We're acquisitions, acquisition, disposition, raising private capital. So we're a machine.
absolutely. So on the disposition side of note vesting, how do you approach dispositions if you want to sell your notes?
It's very similar to how you guys would sell land or people would sell real property. You're going on Facebook. You might have a Facebook group you follow, or there's believe it or not, there's tons of note Facebook groups out there. There's a platforms where you can sell notes on, just like you can, wholesale deals or the MLS. It's very similar to that. So we are fortunate enough that Richard and I have been in the business long enough that we have a real good following and people are always asking us for deals. So we don't have an issue selling deals. We spend most of our time lead generation with either raising private capital or finding more inventory to buy.
I see. I see. And how do you go about finding more inventory um, to buy on the note investing side?
It's again, it's similar to land and wholesaling and finding fix and flip houses and rentals. You can do text campaigns to people that own notes. You can send direct mail to people that own notes. You can go to local RIAs and find out who creates these things or who has these things or talk to realtors that know people that create loans or have sold properties and seller financing. There's a myriad of different ways to find the paper. The low hanging fruit is to go to those websites that have the notes for sale because that's the easiest thing to do. And guess what? They're paying the most for them because it's the easiest thing to do.
Yep,
Just like anything else, if you want to spend the most money, go to the MLS. You'll pay the most price for property, right? If you go knock on doors down the street and all the blighted properties to find a wholesale deal, you're probably going to find a really good deal. But you got to do the work.
That's right. Right. If you're not going to pay for it, you have to do the work at least.
Yeah. If you're not going to get your hands dirty, you don't be in the real estate business.
So you mentioned earlier about people that are, sometimes people when they're first starting out, they're really excited or motivated to work with someone else, partner with someone else. So if someone wants to partner with another note investor, what type of advice would you give to them to find that partner?
Well, make sure they're actually in the business and they actually are actively today investing in notes. Don't Don't try to find somebody that did this in the 80s and hasn't done it for 25 years and just wants to teach and sell you a binder, a 3-ring binder with a bunch of material in it. That's not the person you want to be your coach, your mentor. You want somebody that's actually buying stuff right now, just like a land guy or land gal or a flipper or a rental person. You want somebody that's actually doing deals and has done hundreds of deals, not just 2 or 3, hundreds. And you got to interview them, just like you're interviewing somebody to work with you. You got to interview them.
That's really good advice. And so what types of interview questions, aside from experience, obviously we know experience is a big one that you would want to tell, but what other types of things do you look at for potential partners?
As somebody that I was brand new, am I speaking as if I was brand new looking for somebody to partner with, or
Yes.
the opposite way around?
Yeah. So someone that is brand new looking to partner with someone.
Well, make sure they have the same philosophies and beliefs as you. Some people are probably a little rough around the edges that go about real estate, and they may not be ethical, in my opinion. And some people are really ethical, but they're nice, but they don't mistake their nice for being somebody that does a bad deal, like somebody that's gullible. So that would be my opinion, is that I would want somebody that's done hundreds of deals. And I want somebody that has the same moral values that I do, because I don't want somebody to start teaching me skills that are going to, hose over the borrower. So I don't want to do that. Somebody lives there. That's somebody's home. I don't want someone to do that to my parents,
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that's a really great piece of insight. Well, Justin, I want to thank you so much. I want to be very respectful of your time. Thank you so much for joining us today and to us today. How can we give back to you right now? Are there any resources or connections you're currently?
Let's see. Like we talked about before, we're always trying to raise private capital. So if anybody listening to this is looking or knows somebody that wants to, invest some money, we'd love the opportunity to kind of show what we do. If you just want to learn a little bit more about how these skill sets can help your land business or get you into land deals or out of land deals, reach out to us. We honestly do want to educate you and have the right tools in place. We feel like the better skilled note creators that we have out there, the more good inventory we can buy and trade to each other. And it's just going to benefit the industry in general. There's been a bad culture of people that don't do things the right way in the note business and in all the businesses. And we want to make sure you do the right things. So please don't take 0 down payments. Please don't do 0% interest on deals. You're a bank. You need to do things the right way. If somebody doesn't have a nickel to their name, I know that sometimes you hear sad stories. Just please don't do that. You got to set things up for success for everybody. You got to hold people accountable. So I would say, if you're unsure and you haven't done a note deal before or created a note, talk to somebody like me or somebody in your area that's done hundreds of them. So that, you can set things up the right way. So that's what I would encourage you guys to do. You can reach out to us at our website, ambfunds.com. I'll type it in the chat if you want me to, Kendall, if my mouse will.
Yes, absolutely.
That's how you can get a hold of us. You can talk with me or Richard. We're happy to kind of point you in the right direction. We're obviously looking for deals. So if you know of anybody selling any land deals or any real property deals that have notes on them, that's our bread and butter. Obviously, we want to buy those, performing or non-performing. So those are the things that you guys can help us out with. Otherwise, I honestly I'm not here to sell anything. I'm just here to pass on experience. So happy to share with all the good, the bad, and the ugly that we've done.
Justin, I want to thank you so much. Looking forward to everyone continuing the conversation. I think notes is a space that blends beautifully with the land space as well. And I think that there are so many opportunities in the land space when combining the power of notes in terms of the types of deals, the types of buyers. The buyer pool opens up so much when we introduce creative financing. And so it's very exciting for sure. So again, thank you, Justin. Thank you everyone for watching. Look forward to seeing you all in the near future. Until then, be great, have a great week, and we'll catch you in the next one. If you're interested in hearing from other 6- and 7-figure land flippers about how they've built and run their businesses, then check out my group, OnlyLandFans, where I do a live interview each week inside the group. You can grab that link at the description below. Until then, be great, have a great week, and catch you in the next one.